Smart DNS to have a 1 year.
Streaming.
Yeah, my smart DNS is gone and now I'm
All right. Well,
Lori,
That's amazing.
the
can
only
you get him to move over just a little bit and make room for Ronald?
We'll slide this way.
Hey, move over. And I don't know what app, because Pandora doesn't work on here, right?
not without a VPN, it doesn't.
Well, what do you have? A VPN?
I don't use Pandora. In fact, when we were talking
That's
about,
why I'm here. I want to know what you use.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you so much.
okay, you're welcome.
For Opera, what is it Opera?
Opera, yeah, Opera web browser.
Yeah, I use that exclusively now.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm so happy I heard about that. I don't know who I heard about it from.
Right here.
Yeah, I know it's familiar.
Yeah.
Live here at the computer club.
Yeah.
Opera's been around for quite a while, but
I've seen it, but I never really used it. So.
it was big until Safari and Internet Explorer took over the market, and they tried to do a premium that you'd pay for, and it didn't really go over. It's always been fairly popular in Europe, but obscure
I like the
here.
favorite spots where, you can put, what I'm talking about? That's, you click, I think it's favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I love it. Yeah.
Well, and I'm hoping we'll get a chance to talk about some of the other web browsers because I did a little bit of research on this. I think we're ready to go. How are you guys doing? Are we ready to go? I think we've got a solid internet connection. For a moment there, I was fluctuating between one that said tequilas and one that said piano bar, but apparently the piano bar is definitely the one to be on.
Yes. Really?
It is, yeah, it is the strongest signal. They must have that access point out here in the bar.
Well, I just went
So did you have to put in a?
and the router says has that password, the 101693.
Okay.
What's
I connected automatically without a password, which means it's the same password as last time we were in here. The piano
Unless
bar
it's
should.
unlocked.
Which is what? Do you know what it is?
That's a good question. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can gleam it.
What do you want?
I can gleam it from
Yes.
Windows 10,
It's 101.
or we could just have Linda rattle it off.
693. Say it again. 101 693 7210. Thank you.
And which leads to a quick question.
Okay.
Why is it that only on Windows can you clean that? I mean, why didn't they do that on some of the other?
Well, let me introduce ourselves. We are the San Carlos Computer Club. We're about 6 minutes behind schedule, but everything in here seems to be working today, which is awesome.
How come?
I think it's because last week, as we were ending, they were installing a new Ethernet cable to bring their internet into this part of the bar, and they have added an access point.
Because Esmeralda's back.
Say again? Esmeralda, of course.
Esmeralda's back, yeah.
Yay! So I'm seeing us as having an awesome connection and streaming out, and hopefully all our internet woes are over with now. That's what I'm hoping for. Well, I'm here to help answer any questions, and I've brought some of my own topics. If there's something, I just heard a question, but I also spent some time researching browsers because Gary has come in for asking about Internet Edge and what are some of the advantages of Microsoft Edge.
I installed the browser you mentioned last week. You know,
The Opera browser?
Opera.
It's and Ronald was just sharing his story with it too. He's been very happy with it.
You wipe out all your other browsers when you add Opera, or just go?
Oh no.
I don't. In fact, I make sure to keep all my browsers up to date so that I'm ready to help anybody with anything they happen to be working with.
Speed dial.
Speed dial, yeah, the favorites,
Yeah, the favorites. Yeah.
mosaic of.
Which you can add by clicking on the plus. You can add more on.
Yeah. Yeah, so what Ronald's describing on Opera is this page that'll pop up and use icons or thumbnails of your the websites that matter to you, and you can edit that page. You can add things to it or take things off of it, or I think it even keeps a history of your favorites.
Yes, yes, it does that too.
Yeah, when you return to a page with frequency, it'll put it in that list.
And you got your feed, entertainment, news, sports, technology. I love it.
And also,
Thank
For all
you.
you hot shots,
Thank
you asked
you.
if there were any
Sync your
questions,
favorites.
right?
And sync your favorites, yes. All right, Bob, what's your question?
Okay, several weeks ago, I asked if we could do some basics. And I had talked with two people in this group, and they said that basics, as long as it didn't take too long, would be something that'd be good. And we've kind of ignored that for all you people that are hot shots. Well, really, I'm serious. There's some things that we don't know how to do. And I said, there's people in this group that deal with photography.
On car parts, because I want to understand how to check the O2 sensor in my 99 Honda, and if anybody's familiar with that, I'd be happy to have that information.
What was the tab to get into that?
The icons?
Yeah.
So in the title bar of Microsoft Edge,
Right.
on the left corner, there are two new icons. One looks like two windows on top of each other. It's a dark tab. And if you click that, you've got your inventory of tabs that you've set aside. The one next to it looks like a window that has an arrow coming out of it. And that moves the tabs over into this inventory. A very quick play-by-play. I open up AutoZone. I open up another tab for Honda maintenance. I open up another tab for a discussion group where I'm reading through these people telling me how O2 sensors work and the way you would replace one. And then my wife asks me for bank information. So I hit the set aside tabs. It takes all those tabs that I had open, moves them over to the inventory, opens up a blank window, and now I go to my bank. When I'm ready to go back to the Honda project, I go into the inventory of tabs, and I hit a link next to the list that says Restore Tabs, and it propagates my Edge, my Microsoft Edge browser, with all those previous pages again, exactly where I had them before. It's a very powerful feature, but even more so after I played with it for a while, it keeps historic track of these. So when I open up my inventory, I'm looking at the 3 pages that I was working on last week, the tab I set aside last week, the 2 tabs I set aside 2 weeks before, the 4 tabs I set aside before that. And it's just sitting in there. So I'm looking back at a historic record of these groups of pages that matter to me in that moment. I really don't have much more to add. If
Well,
you guys have
okay,
questions.
I have one more question then.
Okay.
Okay, say that you're done looking at your car parts and you want to get rid of that. I got told the other day by somebody that knows more about computers than I know, but he didn't know about some of the things I knew about. And he said, you got a lot of stuff on here. And so how do you get rid of these tabs if you want to get rid of them once you're done with your car?
Well, if your question is purely how do you clean up after yourself,
That's exactly it.
then the tab inventory, and that's my word, I haven't found a good name for what we're looking at. Microsoft calls it tabs you've set aside. That's the formal name right now, is tabs you've set aside.
Okay, you've set aside the tabs, but have you stayed online with these different sites? Or have you gone offline and then go back online to the tabs?
I think what your question is, if I'm signed into AutoZone, am I still signed into AutoZone after I restore the tab? And that's such a good question. I wish I had thought of that before I showed up, because I haven't checked it. It'd be an easy check.
That'd be a nice thing to be able to go back and forth when you're online to 2 different tabs.
Yeah, I agree. And it'd be an easy thing for me to check. I'm surprised I didn't check it, because we could sign into like a Hotmail account,
I can't do
set
that with Google.
set this tab aside, come back a couple days later and see if I'm still signed into Hotmail. So I'll do that test and see if
Could
see
that
what the
slow your
results are.
computer? By having a lot of tabs?
Definitely everything that you open up takes up memory.
Right.
Yes,
It's
very much.
if you had a computer that is older than 10 years, yes, definitely.
Is Bob talking about cookies?
No, he's talking about these tabs as well.
But I want to get
Oh,
rid
and
of
what I wanted to say about cleaning them up in this tab inventory, it gives you a visual inventory of the tabs. Each group is listed by storage. That put out 4 pages, set them aside. Put out 6 pages,
But his question was,
set 'em
how do you
aside.
get rid of those tabs?
Well, I'm trying to explain because I can't show you the screen.
Okay,
That what this is it's a list of page storages, and they look like icons. So I've got a line that has 4 icons representing each page, and I have a link that says restore these tabs. It's like a set, and they all come back over to my browser. Right next to that is an X that you can hit that'll just remove them.
Oh, really?
but if you, that's one at a time.
No, that's
Okay.
group at a time.
Okay, I just want one gone.
Then each one of those tabs has its own X.
Did you get that?
Yes, I did.
So yes, you could remove a page from a tab set without removing the entire set.
That's good.
As
That's
well,
only if
it's
you're using this.
I'm sorry, would you say that again? Why did you
Gracias.
get rid of them? You just,
in the thing I call tab inventory. Microsoft, it's an ugly thing to call it. Tabs you set aside. It's such a great feature, and it's such a lousy name for something. But in that window, each and Maggie, you can see over my shoulder. These are listed in groups of tab sets. I set these 3 aside, I set that 1 aside, I set those 2 aside at different intervals, and it's a history back in time of when I did this. Each group can be restored on its own. You see that? And I've got the pages up, right? I can set it aside again. And each group has its own X to remove the group.
oh, that removed the whole group.
Yep.
What if you just wanted to remove one of the tabs in the group?
And that's what we were just talking about. You can take and remove.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I didn't do that correctly. I restored that 1 page. But this X right here would remove that 1 page.
Okay, gotcha.
Do they have Microsoft Edge for Android? I have the answer.
Well, why don't you answer your own question?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
In 10 seconds, it'll be completely downloaded.
Now,
Really?
Ronald, you make me glad to show up to club because that wasn't even on my list of features.
It's download. It's called Microsoft Edge Preview, not officially part of their package. And next, install. Pow, it's done. It's installing. So
A lot of us have Android devices as well as iOS devices, and Microsoft's strategy is to put Edge on both of those platforms. And so there's a preview version that's available.
and
Did
I've
you notice that
downloaded
all of a sudden his mouth doesn't hurt?
No, it hurts. It just, you know.
Oh, really? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I had a wisdom tick take it out,
Oh, okay.
and there was a foreign object in the.
Oh, God.
Well, the mind overtook the hurt.
Yes.
Well, so what you're mentioning is the web browser they've created for Android and for iOS.
It's open. Oh.
And the only distinction between that version and the version running on Windows is they can't use their own rendering engine.
You can't use their own.
Their own rendering engine, the thing that makes the pages. They can add all these goodies around that engine, but they're limited to the engine that's built into the mobile device. I know this is true with iOS, and I think it's true with Android. I thought I heard that earlier this week. That the Android version is the same deal. They can't run well, and the reason is because the engine they have for Edge is a Windows application. It is not an Android application. As far as I know, they haven't ported it, And as far as I know, with Apple, they won't allow anything other than the WebKit
That's
built
a real
into Apple.
disadvantage for Apple.
Well, this is the best of both worlds because Apple's rendering kit is actually really good.
Oh, really?
But what this gives you is the ability to use Edge for synchronizing, so that you can do things like bring your bookmarks from your PC to your Android phone. Something that existed if you had a Windows phone, but nobody has a Windows phone, so they couldn't take advantage of
I
it.
did.
Well, except for Gary. Right, exactly. But Microsoft didn't have an offering for that. And so this is Microsoft's way of playing in that space.
Will Chrome ever be a major player in operating systems?
You mean the Chrome browser or the Chrome OS?
The OS.
Yeah, the OS is growing right now. It's growing in education mostly. These really
So is this the new thing? More and more operating systems, or I mean,
from this because one of the topics that I really
That was
Well,
interesting.
you
Well,
said
thank
there
you.
were two features of Edge. Did you do?
and that's what I was going to say is that one of the features of Opera that I was pushing was this ability to make screenshots. And I thought that was so unique to Opera until I started digging into the other browsers. And you don't have installed, but maybe you want to install it. So it shows you the apps available to you, but it also shows you suggestions of apps you might want to use it with when you go to share it.
Do all of you
Can't
have
see that
computers
far.
that you can draw
How
on?
did you get to the purple bar? Was that automatic? with Opera?
every
No, the purple bar opened
you can
when I
download apps
said
to do it.
Oh, when
make
you
a web
clicked on
note.
that pin.
Make a web note.
Okay, okay.
And so opening up Make a Web Note opens these tools. If you could imagine this for a moment, you could be on a web page and talking to somebody, like chatting with somebody on Skype or Facebook. And you'd be like, look what I just saw, and copy, paste into your messenger. And now they're looking at a clip from your web page. You don't you don't fumble around with web addresses or anything like that. You just copy and paste over to the other app you're using. Microsoft has made it very easy for you to circle and point to and write notes on the same thing before you go and paste it into something else. But the other browsers have this
These
ability.
kids are way behind.
Yes, I know.
Play with it.
Look at this. This is a program her grandson.
He's in a
Design.
coding club after school.
Yeah, and he's using this for drawing. Page I'm looking at,
Windows has a
and just
it's very simple.
copy it and paste it right into your
Will that
messenger.
work on Windows
not as
7? 'Cause that's
basic.
what I have in my lab.
Windows 10 accessibility, it would take you to a page where they do nothing to verify whether you actually have an accessibility issue.
Aren't you
They-
disrespecting Windows 8? Skipping right over it.
Right.
Nobody likes
It's only
Windows 8.
probably ask if you have a disability that you need accessibility.
Well, I bet
They can't ask.
the way they're operating, I would bet they didn't even want to try. I think they wanted to just have it out there so people could get to it if they needed to. It was a wonderful reason. You have poor eyesight or you have poor hearing,
Yeah.
right? It was a wonderful reason just to make it free, and they're not even caring whether you can verify it or not. And honestly, with our crowd, who says you don't have an accessibility problem, right? If you got to put glasses on, maybe you have an accessibility problem. If you ask what, I ask what to my wife all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I have an accessibility problem.
And holler it from another room.
Right.
How,
But-
how do they make money then if everything is always free?
Well, I think what I mentioned earlier is sound. These are not software companies anymore. These are service companies.
But you know, they all,
Does this big one need to be plugged in over there?
Not necessarily.
Well, we've got two. Nothing.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Linda. I'm just not going to deal with this right now. I'm connected to Tequila's. It's somewhat working, and I can sort it out after we're
It was
done.
really a lot better when you were holding it up in the air.
Stay
Was
there.
it really?
That's
Up
awesome.
and down.
Well, I mean, I thank you so much for pursuing that, but I'm not gonna.
Big visions of you standing
We will imagine that next Tuesday there will be no
Yeah.
issues with the
Yeah,
internet.
one of these days.
Scott's gonna get here early.
I am.
Yeah.
So is that a promise?
That is a promise.
Okay.
Mm.
Scott?
Yes, like I'll
Bob,
instruct you
Better
with.
Bob
be
will
careful
hold you
how
to
you
this.
phrase
I
it.
know the promise was Scott's going to get here early next time. That's the promise.
Just like I'll instruct you with the
Yeah.
It's not a promise.
The thing I can testify to is that Scott could have gotten here a lot later today. I'm glad I showed up when I did.
That's right, well, you're
I'll
here.
call you
Yeah.
at 6.
Go ahead, Gary.
Are you done with the browser?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I got nothing really to add unless people have any questions about that.
I have a question about a computer I want to.
Do not do any of this without a backup. That's all I'm going to say. After you've got a backup, if you hold down the shift key and restart the computer, it will restart in a mode that has 3 or more icon buttons on the screen. And one of those buttons is diagnose troubleshooting problems. And if you click on that, it will go into resetting and reformatting your computer. What this should do, it's either going to be provided by Microsoft or it's going to be provided by your manufacturer. If it upgraded to 8, I think it's provided by Microsoft because that's what I found on Maggie's computer. It had been upgraded from 8 and only the Microsoft option was there. And then you have the option to restore it while saving the user's files, which is what I did on your computer. And that was actually a really nice result. It put the latest Windows on the computer completely up to date, and it left the files in place as far as the folders they were in, what was on the desktop. It left the desktop background. It left your user account in it with the current password. What it did was it cleared out the start menu and it removed all extraneous applications. Honestly, I didn't pay too much attention to it.
So there's nothing left but the operating system.
And the files and the setup, which is not the option you're talking about, but it is the option that I used on Maggie's computer over the weekend. There is a separate option, format, wipe clean, and it rebuilds the whole system with the latest Windows operating system, and that's the one that would be easiest for you to do. Yeah, and
Got one question.
yeah,
Are you familiar with Hangouts?
Google Hangouts, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
That was the question.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm just saying a lot of people don't use Google Hangouts, but it's the equivalent to Apple's FaceTime, sort of. And a lot of people on Android don't know that they have an application that they can use.
Well, in fact, isn't that so few people are aware of that? Didn't they put out a new app?
I don't know.
There was
I
one
just know that
before that.
every time I meet someone with Android, they don't. You can't connect with them because they haven't downloaded Hangouts. And the Hangouts, one of the big things about the Apple software is they FaceTime, and there's an equivalent to FaceTime on built in on all Android.
Yeah,
I'm
mean,
just
Google
curious. I'm just
Hangouts
curious
is
why
great.
No one use Hangouts
I don't know
because
why I don't.
you can send people pictures, videos, instantaneous.
I'm trying to
do it
find
on
the name.
WhatsApp.
For some reason, I think they put out
Yeah,
something
WhatsApp,
else.
Yeah.
But I'm not finding it. I thought for sure I had looked
But
at
see,
it here
because
somewhere.
because WhatsApp is almost integral to. I mean, it's part of the Android system almost, sort of. You would think it'd be more popular, and it never caught on.
WhatsApp.
Here it
It's
is.
almost on all Android. If you look, you find it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
You know what? Hangouts is a great program. If you're not on Hangouts, you can very easily add groups of people to watch and take turns being a presenter or having a mosaic of conversations going on. It's a really well thought out app, and it gets no love, and nobody ever thinks
That's
about
what I
it.
was wondering.
And I think what you're describing is exactly the reason they have put out a new app that is for almost exactly the same thing, and it is branded. I just had it in front of me and I lost it again. It is branded Duo.
Duo?
Duo. To make video card calls, give access to your microphone, camera, contacts. Oh, this is asking me for
And
access.
the thing about it is, if you have internet, it's the exact thing as WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is popular, except in America. It's everywhere, you know. But I never understood why Hangouts hasn't.
Yeah, and I think this
funny.
Duo is Google's attempt at WhatsApp. If I had known we were going to start talking about it, I would have paid more attention to it. All I know is it exists. It's just been updated. It provides a lot of the same.
It's been out a little bit because
Yeah.
I tried it, but I took it off. It's not popular, so.
Google can't seem to get popular. I mean, Duo. Duo. Yeah, Duo. And Google Hangouts, which is integrated into.
Hangouts is in your Android if you have an Android.
It's in your email, right? I mean, you can
As well.
in your email to
Yeah,
use it.
you can say you have Google, you can use it. I think you can log in. It'll say, do you want to use Google to log in? I think, I'm not sure. And you push yes, and it already has your password for Google. A lot of things, I think that's kind of weird though, but yeah, a lot of things you just push. You want to use Google, boom, and then it just has all your information already. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to make a new name.
Yeah.
It uses your Google account, yeah. Which I don't know. I guess inclusion is the new thing.
Well, you know, on that respect, what it is Google is being the authenticator for all of their applications.
Yes.
So all you have to do is tell Google, you can authenticate this as well, and it uses the credentials you've already provided for one app to authorize the other app.
There's no security.
But that means anybody that's holding your phone
Could turn that on.
Can because it doesn't ask. You can download stuff and it doesn't ask permissions. It just says, do you want to use your Google account? It's not like you have to use your Google account then put in your phone password or anything. You just push yes, and it automatically authenticates the request. And so I could give him my phone and he can push, boom, boom, it's done. I just don't like that, but I mean, I think that's.
You don't like it because of security, right?
Oh, I don't really care.
You like to jump through hoops.
Yes.
The FBI
Make
is
sure.
going to be renamed called the Mafia.
By the way, you said jump through hoops. I was just going to tell you, white man can't jump.
Yeah.
That's a movie. That's a
Not
movie.
very
That's
oh,
a
yeah.
movie. That's a movie, you
That
guys.
was a funny movie.
That's a movie. I said that one time and they didn't get it. I said it's a movie, and
Yeah.
they're like, they still didn't get it. I said, watch the movie. Come on.
Well,
It's a good movie.
Jim isn't here, and remember you when you said, hey, why don't you pay me?
Yeah.
What you owe me?
I've got two other topics.
Okay.
All right. One's just a fun one. I'm going to add links to it on the website. Have you heard of Dog Parker?
Of what?
Dog Parker. Dog
No.
Parker. D-O-G Parker. This is a
Parking
startup
dogs.
in Brooklyn, and I suspect it's going to sweep across the United States in metropolitan areas.
Should we buy stock?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a stock analyst, but I've got dogs, and I know dog owners that love their dogs more than I
Oh
do.
my God, I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, these are,
Sort of like a taxi.
well, no, these are lockers. These are dog houses to rent that will be positioned outside areas that are frequented in a city, so that you can take your dog for walks with you,
Green Valley.
and you can park it in one of these dog houses, and you can go into the shops and do your shopping without having to worry about your dog's safety.
Well, what about dogs? Why don't they do this with walking?
Well, you want,
Like they do with what is that?
you think
that-
there
that
should be a
thing-
treadmill in it?
No. What is that? What is that thing they do with taxis now? It's
Uber?
It's on the Uber. All right. why don't
Well,
they
I'm
do-
sure they've
why
got
don't they
dog
have a
walkers.
walkers?
I'm sure they have
Yeah,
dog
you get on
walkers
there
that are
and
It's
working.
there's
not
dog
about
walkers
walking
near
the
you.
dog, it's
It's
about
about-
securing the dog while
No,
you're
I
in
mean,
the
but
store.
imagine if you needed a walker and you get someone in your neighborhood that's picking up 4 dogs that's
Well,
passing by your
Ronald,
house. People that you want to get rid of for
an app where they come and pick someone up, and they don't tell you where they go.
No, you just no. You say say your grandmother is sitting at home, and you know what I mean. You get on there, and they come to your house.
You're too
Hey,
late.
we've
Oh,
got
they
some
already
more
got it. Oh,
time.
they got a dog walker.
And-
Said it, it's gone.
It's gone.
I told you
And-
not to talk so much.
The last thing I wanted to bring up that actually Maggie brought up to me, I think somebody else brought it up to me, that Roku's in trouble in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah, and
What?
I was very unaware of it.
Start again.
Oh,
start
let
that
me hear
again.
this.
Roku is in trouble in Mexico.
Why?
I saw that.
And it's
Nobody with money wants it.
yeah, well, it started in January.
Yeah.
And then they got an injunction. Roku got in trouble because Televisa had filed a suit against them under terms of piracy, pirating digital content. And so they were able to, in January, I think it was in January, that Roku was able to get a suspension of the ban. And so it was in June, that's when the article Maggie sent me was posting that they had just lost that suspension and that they are completely banned in Mexico now under this.
What does that mean?
Well, what that means, it explains why Roku's fell off of Amazon. It's the reason that they're not selling them in Walmarts. It's the reason that there's no vendors in Mexico selling
By the
Roku.
state, you can use the ground rule.
Well, you can imagine as well,
Well,
it
here-
would be difficult to set up with a stateside Roku account while in Mexico. You would want to set up your new device across the VPN or in the United States.
The
That may be
implications.
why my
Do that
Roku's
anyway?
one's not working.
You have to set up your Roku up there anyway.
I didn't.
Same
But
thing
you
with Magic
could
Jack
set it
now.
up
You have
with
to
a
set it up.
Mexican account, and I suspect you can't now.
What does that mean? Does that the implications of that is Mexico a third world country or what?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
If,
The implication is.
no,
No,
in,
it's
in,
not.
in a second world country or a third world, whatever.
Hmm.
In a first world country like America,
I understand.
you have laws that slow down banning stuff because they got to go through proper channels. But in a third world country, can they just ban things
Well,
without all the proper channels like they do in America? So all of a sudden you see Pirate Bay not working in Mexico, and you understand what I'm saying, taking down of sites. Does it happen faster here where they take down sites? Because right now I'm doing things that I was banned in doing, like downloading movies, and then they send me a letter saying the
Ronald, I think
cable-
your questions are really valid. I think we're on the cusp of seeing this. The reason this is news is because we never heard of them doing stuff like
yeah,
this
that's what
before.
I'm saying. That's really dangerous.
So I mean, we
Bad.
might
So-
we might find that they're going to start pursuing this stuff. And you're right. In the states, there
yeah,
are
but does
cable
it go
providers
faster?
that monitor your activities,
Yeah.
and when the cable provider deems that you're outside of regulations, they send you a notice saying we're going to cut you
Yes,
off
yes.
unless you stop your activities.
Yeah, but what?
What's
my
to
thing,
stop
how does it-
Megacable or
how
Telmex
does
from
it
doing the
affect-
same?
How does it affect these second world countries? Is it a fast thing? They just or
Well, there is
that's
no
my
speed
curious.
to. We've never had this. Is unprecedented.
This was fast.
Wow.
From
Yeah.
January to June.
I mean,
that's
the
one
closest-
that's one of the things I brag about. I
The-
call home. I say, I can download all the Game of Thrones without them bothering me. So,
Don't
the
do that.
closest-
Don't do
yeah.
it with DirecTV either. Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
well, no,
they-
you can't do it from the states.
The
But
closest.
here, they don't
Yeah.
bother you.
I
They
wouldn't
don't.
Oh,
rather
yes,
than-
they do. They
I
did with
wouldn't
the
rather
television.
than-
They will cut out
How
your
long
truck
have you
TV.
been
No.
here?
No, I'm talking about on the internet.
Oh, how
Straight
long
up
have you
from
been here?
10 months, 11 months.
Okay.
Keep your mouth shut.
About what?
About anything.
Well, what are you talking about though?
Pirate.
Well,
DirecTV.
first of all, DirecTV they have police down here. Everyone got shut down
So why are you
here.
talking about DirecTV?
Because it's all.
Because it's
Well,
You guys don't get what I'm saying.
Ronald's
I'm
saying
keeping
he's
my mouth
bragging
shut.
about having access to the same content using the internet instead of
Do
DirecTV.
you
Yeah.
remember Biscuit? Yeah, we all do that.
Yeah.
The only one that was shut down is the illegal, whatever was running around here. I have
Right.
DirecTV.
Yeah, but what,
As far as
what
your
I'm talking
original-
about is like Showbox, Popcorn Time, some of the other ones. What's the big one? Anyway, it's all internet. The internet here is almost untethered when compared to America. People don't realize that.
Gotta understand that that could be turned on. It's just a switch. That's just a change in culture, not technology.
Yes, yeah,
And
that's
r-
what I'm wondering.
And right
but
now,
changing culture
to answer your
usually
question,
usually changes
we've
with
never had this
government.
experience
Yeah.
before. That's why it's news. And the closest thing we've experienced is when Netflix from the United States
They should worry about
started
feeding
regulating
people.
the VPN pools on their own as a private endeavor. They started tracking VPN pools so that they could tell you you can't watch this with a VPN. You got to turn off your VPN.
Yeah, but with
and
a
they
corrupt
could
government, how would they even do this? I don't
They were
understand how
doing
they
it
can
in
get
the
together.
States.
Huh?
States was turning you off. States was catching
Yeah,
you.
that's
I'm
the
talking about in
closest
Mexico.
experience that we've had.
Not
We've
happening.
never had this experience.
that-
But that's what I keep saying. Is we've
I know, but
never
what I'm
had
trying
this
I'm trying to
experience here.
fathom though the
So
government getting together to
we're
do this.
we're probably it's Televisa too.
Yeah, it wasn't for
Yeah, but
I mean that's like NBC.
yeah, I know illegal, but still, like in Africa, this would be unheard of because the government, you'd have.
They wouldn't have done it if Televisa hadn't filed a complaint.
But if they filed a complaint, they're taking it seriously, and that's what I'm having trouble understanding because Mexico doesn't
Because
seem
they're
like the
big
type of
money.
country.
Well, I think you said
That'll
it.
worry
It's
about
a
these types
third
of
world
things.
country. They'll take it as serious as they're paid to take it.
Yeah, paid to take.
Hey.
Yeah.
They're trying to fight Carlos
Okay,
Slim,
along
the
that
richest
line,
man.
along that line, I was gonna send you
Because
guys.
I was showing you some things just the other
I
day.
know, but along that line, I was reading, and I was gonna send it to you,
Sounds good. You
that
won't be there
these
for another
digital
hour.
countries like Thailand and other places,
Oh, yeah,
South
all
Korea?
sorts of stuff.
South Korea, all these places
Okay,
that
bye.
are thinking they're a digital country, they now have internet available for $6 and $7 a month, or almost free, because and that's going to shut down Cox. It's going to shut down. There's 3 companies that it's going to shut down in the United States because I'm paying right now about $50 just for internet alone.
Through where?
But
In Tucson.
but you're
in
talking about getting
Tucson.
it from Thailand? Is that what
No,
you're
no,
saying?
no. They're talking worldwide. That it's
Oh, they're
going
going to be offering it worldwide?
Yeah.
America stopped that. Capitalism.
Well,
They'll only stop it until they can get a
They can
profit
only
off
stop
it.
it
That's
for
what
so
I'm
long.
saying. They'll stop they have to get their cut. So
As soon as they can get their cut, it'll be
They'll
available.
be taxed immediately.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Hey, Scott, the other day, she went down to
I like your voice.
Garcia's to buy print of ink,
Oh yes.
and they wouldn't sell, they had it, but they wouldn't sell it to her because they said that she bought the printer in the United States. You bought it at Walmart probably, or
And who wouldn't sell you the ink?
Garcia's.
It is different.
Yeah, it is,
They
is that
wouldn't
an
sell her the
HP?
ink because it was an
Same
American
problem I have. I
printer.
run out of ink
This
in
is
the
something
States
brand
and
new.
What?
You
It's
have to
a
buy
brand
it
new
where
Hmm.
you want it.
thing.
It is
3-4
different,
days
Robin.
ago.
Yeah, you didn't, did you
If
know
it's
that?
an HP, the ink is different. You have to buy it where you purchase the printer.
It's cheaper
Well-
to buy a new printer.
She's talking about print.
But they-
right?
Well,
had
what
that.
should matter
I
is
have a
the
guy
model
in Guaymas
ink.
No, the
recharges
lady
my
the manager
cartridges.
came out and said
And
it was an
never have a
American
problem.
printer and we are not allowed to sell
It's kind of a
the
pretty
ink
deal.
to you.
That doesn't
That
sound
sounds
right.
like a little ignorant.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe, I mean, you went in with ink cartridge numbers, right?
She had it all.
Was it a Canon?
No, it's a
He's on the
HP.
side street, directly across.
Just go to JG's.
That's just
But
like my
I
age.
don't know, but she,
There's a shop in Guaymas Norte.
Yeah.
I know what that is.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
Have
and
you
if
tried
if
Sam's?
they don't have it, they'll order it
Sam's
for
don't
you.
have it.
Sam's didn't have
You
it?
might also check Amazon Mexico,
Walmart didn't have it.
because that's a great way to get it. I mean, I have
Okay.
ink delivered to my office now through Amazon Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, do they charge you an import charge and all that?
Well, I pay for Prime in
He
Mexico.
refills the cartridges.
Refills
I
it.
had,
The-
I just canceled my
Yeah.
This is something
Can I ask you a question about an Android
Gracias.
box?
Sure.
It's a law that
We're,
can't sell it.
again, we're still, who does that? It's Jennifer.
Right across from
This
the
is
We
electric
live
company.
in Puerto Vallarta,
Mhm.
Oh my God,
and
my phone.
You know
last
the
year,
road that comes
a
down
friend of
in
ours
front of the electric
bought a
company
new
that the
TV,
buses
a
go
smart
on?
TV, and
Not
purchase
that
the
one, it's the
Android
one
box
on the
from
side.
a fellow there in Port
So
of
we
the
still
Art.
don't know why.
Okay.
He
The
brought the
cross-
box
It's
out,
a new law.
The
charged
road
for
that
the
the
box,
box comes down,
A new law.
is
to
one
set it
way,
up and program
okay?
it with a one, just
Okay,
a one-time
but
deal.
right at the corner
like
where the electric
roughly
company is,
2,000
there's
pesos.
another road that goes this way.
Okay.
And it's right,
But,
right across the street.
That included the box?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that this year. We need to buy the smart TV. We have internet in our condo.
If you have any questions, you can call.
Now,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
you can put a Chromecast on there too, and you don't have to get a smart TV.
Wait, but Ronald, a Chromecast requires working with a mobile device at the same time.
Yes.
You don't have a
This
remote
just works.
control, and you
Well,
you have to feel comfortable with your phone or
Use your
tablet
phone.
to
Yeah, yeah.
provide
We
your
just wanna do it
content.
simple like this fella did. My
These
question-
Android boxes are really easy for us to use because they have a remote control that comes with it. They turn on automatically.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
very
yeah,
much like a Roku with
just
more
one remote
more
is-
functions.
And it does all
Yeah.
the programs. My question is, what are the latest specs for the newest, most up-to-date Android boxes?
Oh,
Ed was giving me some, you know.
Well, my Amazon is my Android's 7.1 Marshmallow.
yeah. So outside of the latest smartphones, 7 is pretty much the norm on these right now. 8 has not come out for these devices.
7.1 Marshmallow?
Would be the latest Android operating system you'd find on one of these.
You want a high
What I've
gigabyte.
Yeah, what I've seen recently is 4 to 8 core processors with 3 to 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Okay, I'm doing one line at a time.
Okay.
7.1 Marshmallow.
Yeah, that's the Android operating system.
Okay.
And then the RAM would, the latest ones are having 3 to 4 gigabytes of RAM.
3 to 4.
You can get
These Android TV boxes are pretty interesting because I feel like I'm talking about PCs 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? The you probably want a little bit of storage in it, at least 8, but I would look for 16, and there are boxes that are doing 32 now.
The 32,
One I
yeah.
just bought her has 7.1, 8, it's octagon.
It's an
It's got,
octo processor,
Okay,
yeah.
16 to
Has 8?
32.
Is pretty normal
You're
for
talking about
high
mine?
end nowadays. You
Storage.
need at least 8, but 16 to
Gigabytes
32
or
What
of
is mine?
gigabytes, yeah.
gigabyte? Huh?
The one you bought me is 8.
Mhm.
Gigabyte.
It's 8.
Memory?
Yeah, it's 8.
16 to 32 gigabyte
4.
memory.
Oh,
That would be storage.
Oh,
That's
storage.
like the equivalent of a hard drive.
Okay.
Then the other one was RAM.
Was RAM, which is
I got
You
that.
got it,
3
okay,
to 4
RAM, yeah.
gigabytes
Mhm.
RAM.
Yeah.
yeah, and then you would be looking for features. You'd be looking for probably 4K to be forward compliant. And so that way, if you end up with
4K.
you end up with a 4K TV, you can you can watch 4K
Some of them
content.
have Bluetooth in there.
okay,
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm missing on my box is it doesn't have Bluetooth, but others have
So
Bluetooth.
4K is
So
what
that's
now?
what makes this work.
It's a spec for.
It's for the
1080p. It's the next step in resolution.
Okay, resolution. Okay.
yeah.
Most of them come out.
I'm realizing, guys, I need to start shutting this down. I have a
Okay.
meeting in Wymus I need to get
Oh, you
to.
can delay it.
Uh-oh.
I can't.
I
It's
know.
by appointment with the government.
Oh, those are the 4 things I need to look for.
Well, and then ports.
Okay.
You want an HDMI port. You want to have the
HP.
option for an Ethernet port, like a network port. You want to have a couple of USB ports off of it.
And the most important
Music apps.
is color.
You said there are 7.
color.
Color.
Nice, pretty red one.
Oh, color.
The least important.
Color of the box.
The color of the box. If it's
That's how
got
you pick football teams.
if it actually
Whatever
sells
color
with a
they have on it,
Bluetooth remote,
You know.
that's
Pretty blue,
ideal
yeah, you
because
can-
you can hide the box.
Okay.
Whereas if it's an infrared remote, you have to have the box exposed so that you can use the
What
remote.
was
What
that
are
last
they?
part
You
then?
know?
So you can hide it? What did you call that part?
Bluetooth remote. Yeah,
Yeah.
that allows you to
That's why
ferret it
Bluetooth-
behind
Yeah.
something and not worry about it. You got like 30 feet, whereas infrared you need to be pointing
Oh, I'm
line
not
of sight
out
at it.
all.
Okay, I have a
Again,
question for you
keyboard,
quickly.
you gotta-
Yes, and I want to help you with this, but I don't know if we have time to
No,
get into
we
it.
probably
You have
don't.
to use a
Just,
keyboard?
okay, I understand that music apps are
It has a
available.
remote.
Pandora is
How about
not
last
available
trust
down here,
me.
they say,
You
without
basically
the
need to go buy a
VPN.
Right.
$20
And I have the VPN, but I'm not using
San
it.
Carlos is my home.
What I
Easy
haven't
input.
tried doing with
but
Amazon,
you're-
I
you're-
have
you're a,
Amazon Prime in
what do you
Mexico.
call
This
it,
is a device intended for
Snowbird?
Amazon in the States. If you have Prime in the
Oh.
States, you have access to their
Oh.
music collection. And so you just
Because most-
ask it for music
most
from
people that say,
Amazon
"Oh,
and
yeah, I
it
live
feeds it
here."
up to you.
Okay, so then I
But they're
do need to
snowbirds,
keep
so
my
it's like-
Amazon Prime.
I believe it's only available through Prime, and I'm not sure if I have it
Fisherman?
available to me here
I would
because I'm
like to
paying
be a
for
fisherman.
Mexican Prime
My
or I'm
father
paying
would
for
be
US Prime.
Very
You don't know which one?
disappointed
I don't know
with me
which one
I
because
don't
I pay
fish
for both.
lately. You know, I haven't been
Yeah.
fishing in a while, so.
Okay.
So, I mean, it would be
But
interesting to play with
I
your
love
device. I'm
fishing,
sure you
but
don't
I
have Prime in Mexico yet, so it'd be
Every time-
interesting.
every
Do you have
time
Prime
I
in the
try,
States?
I don't catch
No,
anything.
I just signed up for it. We were just talking about music apps.
I just Google free music,
Yeah?
all kinds of stuff
What's your
comes
number,
up.
Ron?
On
Oh,
this,
thank you.
there is a number of apps called skills, and there's a very good chance that
I
there
don't- you
is
know, I
a
don't even know.
skill
Let me
that
look.
gives you access to some music service.
So look up
Skills, Amazon
on my
skills.
What did you
computer.
just say?
Mhm.
And then,
Well, and you'll
Please,
you'll
something
want
about
the Alexa app
Huh?
off of your
okay,
for
Alexa's
you.
working here already.
Right, Amazon Alexa. You'll need a mobile app to set this up and to browse the catalog
You
of
know what, I
skills
put
and
my
set
phone number
things up
under
with the device. You need a
my
mobile
own
device to work with
number.
it.
Well, I have
I think
this.
it's under
Yeah, that would
my-
work. So you
Okay.
just
Got it,
install the Amazon Alexa app there and
It's
use that
already
to
in.
manage
My
that.
own number, there we
Okay,
go.
it's
So
already
in that app, hold on one
That's not
second.
it.
In
I
that
just wanna say thank you, goodbye.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I was trying to get to you as
Yeah,
quickly
it's
as
not
I
my own
could.
number.
No question. Goodbye, everybody. Have a
We'll
good
see you
Bye,
night.
next
see you
week.
next week.
Better look at your home number.
Excellent.
That's American number.
Yeah, in that app,
Because,
it will show you a
anyway,
list of skills. You can
uh,
search it
let's see.
like you'd search
do I
Google,
find
and
that?
it'll bring up. So you
Go
could
to
search it for
settings.
music, and it would bring you up a bunch of skills
Okay.
related to music.
And we go
Because I've got
to-
news.
Yep.
I've got jokes in here.
I gotta shut this off. I gotta go.
Okay.
This has been the
All right.
San Carlos Computer Club. I am Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions, and if you've enjoyed this, please check out scclub.org. You will find podcasts and links to this kind of information. We've also got a YouTube channel you can find from there. Like I said, I work here locally, but I also do work remotely. If you're looking to solve computer problems, I hope that you use us. You can find out more information. Write me at scott@internationalcs.net or visit my website at internationalcs.net. Thanks for everything. Thanks to Tequila. It looks like our internet is finally working the way it should be. It only took an hour, but it looks good again. So hopefully we'll be ready to go for next week. No drops, no disconnects. Good talking to you, and tech on.